Ordinary days, the 17th of January 2023 through the Sunday, the 22nd of January 2023. So these were the days of the March for Life in Washington, D.C. and the Walk for Life West Coast in San Francisco, both of which I helped to lead and do events at. Let me walk you through these days. So Tuesday the 17th, I was here in my office for most of the day until I went to the airport that night. I had desk work. Let's see, I did email work and other meetings and phone calls in regard to preparations for the upcoming trip, videos from interviews that we want to deploy, upcoming interviews, planning for those, preparing and approving opinion pieces and getting requests for opinion pieces, working on the 2023 revisions to the 2023 survey of our donors, members of Congress communicating with me about various things, especially in preparation for these upcoming days, and also working on showing people where various sermons and homilies online from me over these years can be located. I did an 11 a.m. Interview by Zoom with a national Hispanic media outlet. At 12:30, I did a Zoom interview for an hour for Bot Radio Network. And then right after that, at 1:30, another hour-long interview with Taylor Marshall. Many of you told me that you saw that. And after that, a 3 p.m. meeting with my administrative and fundraising team in regard to prospecting that we are doing. Many plans underway. Desk work, final packing and preparation, and then heading to the airport at the conclusion of the workday, working in the car there. Some of my administrative team came with me. And then because we had a very early flight the next morning, I stayed in the airport hotel there in Orlando to get ready for that flight. Wednesday the 18th arrived, and early in the morning, we went to our plane to get to D.C. On the plane, and while waiting at the gate, I did email work regarding social media, the upcoming streaming schedule, did edits to some favorable articles that people are writing about me, and they wanted me to look them over, parish faxes that are going out to all the parishes around the nation. The priests hear from us regularly, and they will continue to. And our online Rachel's Vineyard Conference, which has been underway now since November, and I did a little bit of work checking in on the progress of that. Then that was a day when I have here a 27-page schedule of the events of the days of the March for Life for me and also for my team. So on the 18th, let's see what happened. We landed in Washington at about 9:15 in the morning. I settled into my room, and let's see, right away I had an interview there in the room after I started welcoming people, of course, that were arriving. And what happens when we get there is you just stand in one place, and it's groups and people from all over the country, which I had visited over the years, preached at, prayed at abortion facilities, went to their banquets, their conventions, and so on. So met a lot of those people arriving, and then 11 o'clock I had a Skype interview for about a half an hour. And then I went right over to the restaurant next to the hotel and had an update meeting with Bobby Schindler, the brother of Terry Schiavo. Of course, I've helped him and his family over the years. And so we had a good working lunch. He wanted my input and involvement in a new project that he is doing, which is going to help the medically vulnerable. You'll hear more about that. And then I went back to the hotel and went to the exhibit area where booths are being set up, and I interacted with so many of my friends and colleagues there from other pro-life groups. Then went back up to my room and had an interview. Actually, it wasn't in my room. It was outside in a mobile studio, a van, a unit that Trinity Broadcasting Network had. So I did an interview out there with them at 2:30. Interacted with more people arriving at the hotel, and then at 3:30, I helped to lead a protest at a local CVS there in Washington. It was actually a national event, and I was there with some of my colleagues in national leadership protesting the fact that many of these pharmacies are becoming abortion centers for distributing chemical abortion. Right after that, I went back to the hotel and I had an interview with Abby Johnson, who's producing a new movie, and she and I caught up with each other. We're good friends, and she did the interview of me. And then after that, let's see, I went back up to meet with our team and our staff, many of whom are gathering in DC and we're arriving. And we did some networking again, in the exhibit area, many people that we saw. And then we had a meeting in the suite we had about a dozen of our staff there meeting together and planning out the events of the coming days. And that was important. On the 19th, Thursday, a little bit of media work about upcoming media interviews as well as postings online, but it was a day full of activity, starting with an early breakfast in the suite, and then I went to Planned Parenthood of DC, and I was the leader of the national protest that we had there. We had about 500 people on the sidewalk, youth groups and whatnot. I had various national leaders come to the podium and speak to the crowd. I led prayers, they led prayers. We had various priests there that are connected with Priests for Life. A great event there in front of Planned Parenthood. When that finished, came back to the hotel. I did an interview with Steve Bannon on War Room, and then we had a meeting of pro-life activist leaders. We led this meeting in the suite. I think we had about 25 leaders who focus in on prayers, vigils, marches, rallies, protests, Face the Truth tours, other kinds of what we call street activism. So it was a strategic meeting. After that, I had to go down to our booth to be able to meet with people there who were looking at our pro-life exhibit at the March for Life Expo, like a big conference, and all these exhibit booths were there, including ours. Then I hooked up with Janet Morana, our executive director, at the Law of Life Summit. That was going on in the same hotel. It was an educational seminar. Again, various leaders speaking one after the other. And Janet and I spoke at that about our work with Priests for Life. It was a fantastic moment there with those leaders. And then right after that, I got in the car with a few of our team, and we were driven to the Basilica, the National Shrine of the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception, where for about 2 hours, I networked with pro-life groups and people who were arriving for the Mass for Life. That is always a beautiful moment there at the Basilica when people see me, greet me, take photos with me, and we encourage them and pray with them. It was wonderful. I have great update conversations. Many of these people, I visited their communities over the last 30 years or am going to be visiting them in the near future. We drove back then to the hotel and got ready to, I had yet another interview when I got back to the hotel with Just the News, John Solomon and Amanda Head. We had a great chat there on their national news program. And then about 5 o'clock, we left the hotel to go to another beautiful event, the Vans for Life dinner held at the Museum of the Bible, a pro-life dinner at which I was given a special recognition and said a closing prayer for the evening, and then was greeted by people who were there to support this great effort. That was Thursday the 19th. And after that, Vans for Life event, went back to the hotel, met with some of our team in the suite, and concluded the evening. Then Friday the 20th was the day of the March for Life. So I was up very early, got some breakfast. Then I had to pack my things carefully because certain things I was leaving in Washington, other things I had to take with me for the overnight trip to San Francisco to lead events at the Walk for Life. And I also had to have the stuff I needed for the day of the March for Life. So I spent some time in the morning organizing all my things in that way. Then we left early for Constitution Hall, at which I was, and this is one of my favorite moments of every year, led the National Prayer Service. And we at Priests for Life bestowed the awards to the pioneers of the Pregnancy Center movement. It was a glorious prayer service from 8:30 to 10:30. When that was done, I went down to the rally point for the March for Life. I had with me Mr. Bob Unanye, who is the CEO and owner of Goya Foods, and beautiful faith and conviction that this man has, standing up for life and standing up for everything that is right. So we marched together. We went down to the rally point. I went into the media tent, did several interviews prior to the march getting underway, several interviews both in the media tent and outside the media tent, and then went over to the very front of the march, where I always march together with the other leaders, and I was marching with Mr. Unanwe and also with Alveda King, with Pastor Paula White Kane and her husband Jonathan Kane. We all marched together right there at the front and had some good time of prayer and conversation as we marched together with that enthusiastic crowd. Once we got up to the Supreme Court at the conclusion of the march, the Silent No More campaign and its co-founder Janet Morana and also Georgette Fournier were there already. A podium was set up. I led the opening prayer and remarks at the Silent No More gathering. This is the concluding event of the march, where those who have had abortions speak about their testimony. So I opened that up in prayer and with initial remarks, and then right from there had to hop into the car to go to Dulles Airport together with our street activism coordinator, Brian Kemper, and we got on a plane for San Francisco. So we flew to San Francisco. Now, usually on the plane, as you know from these daily updates, I'm working on my laptop or reading or writing. This time I just slept, because it was not only the conclusion of these several days of intense activity in Washington, but now we were going to be getting ready for another day of the same in San Francisco. So I slept on the plane. We arrived there in San Francisco. We had to get to our hotel, check in, went back to bed. And then on the morning of Saturday the 21st, got up nice and early, connected with my team out there, and we went to Planned Parenthood to do a protest there, did some prayers. Then from there, we went over to the Cathedral of San Francisco and greeted the people on the plaza for about an hour, a little over an hour. Groups coming, taking their photo with me, greeting individuals. It was wonderful, as it always is. And then once we finished all the greetings and the welcome of people there, we went over to the Civic Center, and on the plaza there started to get ready for the Walk for Life. We greeted people as they arrived. We did interviews, and then I led the Silent No More gathering there. We had people giving testimony, and I spoke to the crowd as it gathered for the main rally for the Walk for Life, and I shared with them some inspiration, some encouragement, some reflections. And then we had the main rally there at the main stage for the Walk for Life, and then we walked for life. We walked right at the head of the walk together with Archbishop Corleone, the Archbishop of San Francisco, and we did that successful walk through the streets. At the end, I always position myself at the point where the walk ends, greeted all the people as they came by. Lots of people taking pictures, conversing, encouraging one another. It was just great. After that, we went back to our hotel room with my team. We freshened up a little bit, and then we went to a dinner of pro-life leaders at 5 o'clock at a local Italian restaurant. It was excellent. Right from there, went to the airport to get on an overnight flight back to Washington, D.C. What happened in Washington, D.C.? When we landed, we went to our hotel, the same hotel we were at in the previous days, and again, about a dozen to 15 members of my team were there. They were packing things up, getting ready for the events of the day. We went to the Supreme Court, and at the Supreme Court, we held a memorial service, because remember, Sunday the 22nd was exactly 50 years since the Roe v. Wade decision. So we memorialized the babies that were killed by abortion over all these years with flowers, with speeches. I led a prayer there at the rally in front of the court. And once that was done, my team and I headed to the airport. And we had a nice, relaxing a lunch at Legal Seafood there in the Reagan Airport. And we talked, we debriefed about all the events of these previous days, and we made some plans for the coming days. On the plane, I did do some work. The flight back to Florida was good, and I was working on my laptop, working on emails, preparing for the coming days, catching up on updates from our staff. Landed in Florida, got to my office, unpacked a little bit, and went to bed on Sunday the 22nd. Those were eventful days. I was so glad to hook up with many of you, and I thank you for your pro-life commitment. We're going to end abortion, and these days brought us closer to doing that. Let's continue.